Hello, welcome to this short video on uploading data onto the Open Data portal. So I'm going to start off by talking about some basic principles or rules for sharing data, which I think is helpful just to set the context so that we know what we're trying to achieve and the kind of data that we want to share. So I'm not going to read through all of these, but the basic principles, maybe the top 4 or 5, are quite important. So we obviously don't want to share any some private data or anything that could infringe security. We want to collect the data as raw as possible at the source with the highest possible level of granularity. So ideally not summary statistics, but the raw data as it's collected. And we want to make sure that obviously as many people can use this as possible and that the widest range of users' needs are addressed. We'll structure it well and publish it using an open data license. I'll put the link to these principles in the underneath the video. But perhaps of more interest for this video is what kind of data are we actually looking at publishing? And these aren't Bristol City Council's rules, but they are, I think, sensible guidance on the kind of data that we might want to publish. So we want data that provides transparency on council decisions, and that might be budgets, it might be environmental data, or things that people have a genuine interest in understanding the underpinning data. And secondly, we might want to publish data that can be used to either make us money, save us money through delivering better services, or for other people to drive innovation using our data that can help people understand and access council services. And real-time data is obviously important and interesting to people because it can help make decisions, and that could be things like traffic flow or air quality. Data that helps citizens make informed choices, things that they're interested in, like school applications. Again, that's important for transparency too. And really, data should be regularly updated. We should have a long time series, and it needs to be actively maintained. So moving on to actually doing this and putting interesting and useful data onto the portal, it's generally broken down into 3 specific processes, and that's often called ETL: extract, transform, and load. So first of all, we extract the data, we retrieve it from another process or resource. That could be a web page, and that's what I'm going to show in this video. And then we need to transform it. Sometimes it needs cleaning. Maybe there's too many rows, too many columns. We might need to reorder it or assign data types that are not correctly assigned in the raw data. And then we load it. So we've cleaned our data, and then we put that data onto the portal. And for our open data portal, there's 2 main processes for that. We can manually upload it, which is what we're going to look at. But there is a facility to automatically update via the REST API, and that's a bit more complex. So I'm not going to cover that in this video, but just to be aware that that is possible. Okay, so what we're going to do now is look at some of that extract, transform, and load process. So I'm going to use, as an example, I'm going to use road traffic statistics from the Department for Transport, and I'm going to use a subset of that, which is just for Bristol. And what we're going to actually look at is this quite large data set here, which is vehicle counts recorded in the area of Bristol, and you can see there's 26,000 odd lines of data or observations for that. And it's helpfully provided to us in the form of comma-separated values, or CSV, which is directly readable by Excel and other programs. So we can simply copy that link. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use R to process this because that's what I'm used to using. You can do this in Excel, you can do this in other programs, probably Power BI and things like that will work also. But I've written this short script in R, and I'm going to talk you through it. As I say, don't need to worry too much about all the code, but you can do this in Excel, exactly the same process, just using more standard Office tools. So first of all, I'm going to read the data in, and this is just using that URL that I copied earlier. And you can see that now it appears, and we have got 26,868 values. And if I look at the dimensions of that data table, we can see that 1,000 rows, 32 columns. It's quite a lot of columns. And we might want to actually look at that data in detail, actually just inspect it, give it the once over. It's difficult to look at 26,000 rows, but we can look at a snapshot of it. It's just taking its time to do that now. And there we can see what it looks like. So we've got things like count point ID, direction of travel, year. It all looks fairly standard. It looks like this region name never changes. The region ID never changes. So we might want to take that out. We've got a road type in here. And then we've got some location data. And then the count data for each of these vehicle types. So that's the data in a nutshell. So we can look at see whether the names of those fields are compliant. And what the portal wants is essentially lowercase and separated with an underscore, the words. And if you don't provide that, it will change that for you. So you don't need to worry too much about it, but it's good practice to probably just make sure that that data is in the right, that the names are in the right format before you upload it. Now, taking a deeper dive into the data, we can use this this function, which actually will do a rather more in-depth analysis of the data and present some summary statistics so that we can understand what processes we're going to use to clean it later down the line. As I say, you don't need to really dwell too much on the process, on the code that's running, but just to be aware that this is a way of doing it quite quickly when you compare it to a similar process in using, say, Power BI or Microsoft Excel. So at the moment, you can see that on the bottom screen, it's just running through and creating some visualizations for us. And shortly, it will produce a nice report. And there it is done. And we'll just wait for it to render that report and we can have a quick look at it. Okay, should be coming up any minute. And here it is. Okay, so this is the report it writes, and we can see from that summary data at the top, we've got number of rows, number of columns, missing observations. So there's 33,000 missing observations. That may or may not be a problem. It's helpfully discriminated between discrete columns. So these are discrete values, and continuous columns, which are numerical data which vary continuously. And here we've got that 25% of the data is discrete, 75% is continuous. We've got 38.2% of the data have got complete rows, but there are obviously some missing. There's 3.9% missing observations. And it's showing us the list of fields here. Hopefully all the data that we really need or we're interested in, there's no missing data, but we've got some missing data in the length, miles and kilometers. Now here we've got some histograms which break down the data and just give us a kind of single snapshot of how the data is distributed. And the traffic data all looks reasonably okay. It's obviously skewed to the left. We've got hours in here, which may not be helpful. And obviously distributions of eastings, the geographical data, eastings, latitude and longitude is not particularly useful, doesn't really tell you anything. And looking down at the bar charts, we can see that we've got some non-varying data points here. So region name, local authority name, region ID, and local authority ID aren't particularly useful to keep in the data because they don't vary at all. We can just take those data points out. And looking at the direction of travel, we've got some odd things going. We've got something odd going on here where we should only have 4 and we've got 5. That's because somebody has accidentally put a lowercase w in instead of an uppercase W. So we've got a few things to do in terms of cleaning data. So in order to clean the data, I'm going to run this little chunk of code here, which is going to mutate that direction field so that we convert it to uppercase, so we don't get a lowercase w. And I'm going to take out those fields that don't change. And I'm going to also take out the fields which are summary statistics. So there's 2 fields in there, one of which is all motor vehicles and one which is all HGVs, which is simply summaries of all of those vehicle types, because we can calculate that in the portal and it will just save us some space in terms of the raw data set. I'm going to also take out eastings and northings because we've got latitude and longitude, so that's redundant data. And because we've got a date field, we don't actually need this year field because the year is part of the date. And then finally, I'm just going to take 10% of this data because if I keep the whole 26,000 rows, it's going to be quite slow when I demonstrate some of the back office functions in the portal. So I'm just going to run that. And you can see it's created this new data set up here with only 10% of the 10% of the rows. And if we look at the dimensions, 10% of the rows, and we've only got 23 columns now instead of 32, which is a bit more manageable. So we've done that transform bit now, and what we're going to move to now is the load, where we're going to create that file ready for upload onto the portal. So I simply run that and it's going to write that CSV. Finally, I'm going to just run this little line of code here, which is going to give me my string, which I'm going to use in an expression processor later on. So I'm just going to copy that. And now I'm going to move on to show you the back office in the portal, which is going to be where we upload the data and do some more operations to make a nice, interesting data set. So this is the front page of the portal. Once you've got your login details from Marius, you'll be able to see this start here, which gives you access to the back office in your profile. So let's click on the back office, and that will give you access to this screen here. And so what we're going to do is add a new data set. That brings up this dialog here. We're going to add a source and we're going to upload a file, which is going to be the CSV that we've just created. So that was this file here. We're going to open that and it's going to upload that, and it's basically putting this onto a big database that's in the cloud, which is the back end of the Open Data portal. And you can see we've got now a snapshot of what the data is going to look like. And this is pretty much what we're expecting. It's a nice, good representation. We've got all clean field names, so that's good. And we can now we can change this name of the data set to something a bit more friendly. So we're going to call it traffic counts BFT. And we can save that. And we can publish it. So this will make it appear on the internet, but because we haven't changed the permissions yet, so it won't appear, it won't go out to the whole, it won't be publicly published. It will just be available to me at the moment, and I can change that later on. But this helps me see what it's going to look like. So here we are. This is what the data set is going to look like, and it's obviously kind of raw and unpolished, but nonetheless, we can get a good snapshot of how it looks, and yeah, it's looking pretty good. We've got a bit more work to do on it because we need to do some processing, particularly to get set up filters and to set up the geographical data so that we can have a